So our natural inclination when someone hurts us is what?
Put them back.
We try to get them back. We try to get revenge. We try to get revenge by hurting them back, if not as much or more. Some people hold to the philosophy, I don't get mad, I get even. How many of you guys have seen the movie Fried Green Tomatoes?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. It's okay. I've only seen it only recently, about like 4 months ago. I watched it with my girlfriend, and she's like, you have to watch this movie, you have to watch this movie. I'm like, alright. But there's this one scene that really sticks in my head. I forgot what her name was, but the older woman is trying to pull into this parking spot. She's waiting for the parking spot, and some younger girls, they pull in with with their sports car faster, and they're like, whoo, just pull in. She's like, hey, I was waiting for that spot, and they're like, face it, lady, we're younger and faster. So then, what does she do? Remember that scene. She gets her car, reverses, and starts ramming into the back of their car. She does this 6 times, and they're like, what are you doing? She's like, face it, girls, I'm older and I have better insurance, and just drives off. So what story does vengeance remind you of? Think back on your life, and think about all the revenge and vengeance that you've wrought in your life, or have had wrought in your life. I wrote this sermon with many of the recent superhero movies in mind. That's how Batman gets his motivation. His parents are killed, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna fix this city. This is my city. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna redo this." And we see Dick Grayson do the same thing, and he becomes Robin. Of course, a prime example of this is the most recent superhero movie that came out, and that's The Amazing Spider-Man. And I wanted to show you guys a clip where he is obsessing over all these blonde-haired, mid-height guys. They have short blonde hair, and he's going after all these guys, looking for the right guy, the guy with the star tattoo on his arm. And he's obsessing over this guy over and over, and he's just trying to get revenge. He's trying to get even with the guy who killed his uncle. Now, the truth that I want to emphasize today is that the people of God do not retaliate. They don't seek vengeance, and they don't take revenge into their own hands. When Jesus is being arrested, he rebukes Peter for striking out at a soldier. The people of God experience something better than revenge. They experience true peace. They experience the blessing and justice of the Lord. In the midst of their righteous behavior, they experience the peace that passes understanding. And if ever there was someone who had more than a right to take vengeance into his own hands, it was David. So now we pick up our story at the end of 1 Samuel chapter 23. If you guys would like to open up your Bibles, I'm going to be reading from 1 Samuel chapter 23. Now, excuse me while I get into character real quick. I'm not going to do a funny voice or anything, don't worry about it. So up to this point, I haven't really done anything bad. I'm just sitting there tending to my flock, and old man Sam comes up, hey, come here for a second, and he dumps oil on my head. And the first thing I'm thinking, this is going to be a pain to wash out. Why? Why would you do this, Sam? And he's like, by the way, you're going to be the next king of Israel. And I'm just thinking, whoa. And the only reason Samuel had to come and find me in the first place was because of the fact that Saul had recently been messing up so bad. He's no longer walking with God. And now to top it all off, he's trying to kill me. Come on, seriously? You're the one who messed up and you're trying to kill me? So here I am on the run with a crazy, sadistic king on my trail. Let me read you the excerpt real quick that I mentioned earlier. Saul and his men began the search, and when David was told about it, he went down to the rock and stayed in the desert of Maon. When Saul heard this, he went into the desert of Maon in pursuit of David. Saul was going along one side of the mountain, and David and his men were on the other side, hurrying to get away from Saul. As Saul and his forces were closing in on David and his men to capture them, a messenger came to Saul saying, "Come quickly, the Philistines are raiding the land." Then Saul broke off his pursuit of David and went to meet the Philistines. That is why they call this place Selah Hamalachath, which means rock of parting. And David went up from there and lived in the strongholds of En-Gedi. So here I am, running from Saul, and I come upon this perfect place to hide. There's vegetation, there's water, it's just a nice oasis. And to top it all off, there's this nice cave where I can use as a lookout point. I can see for miles. And so it came about that Saul, after dealing with the Philistines, comes after me again. And this time he has 3,000 men. 3,000 men against me? Really? I defeated Goliath. I'm not gonna worry about 3,000 guys. But at the same time, I am fearing because 3,000 is a big number. And all of a sudden, Saul has this urge to relieve himself, and he comes to my cave. I mean, how could this get any better? Here's a guy bent on killing me, and he's peeing in my cave, oblivious to the fact that I'm there with all my guys behind me. In his rush to come and kill me, he all of a sudden has to answer a call of nature. Now remember, at this point, we didn't have public restrooms or porta potties or, your very convenient honey bucket. We just had to, behind the bush over there, or on that tree over there, or squat behind that rock. Of all the caves he chose mine. Coincidence? I don't think so. One of the greatest tests of character comes at moments just like this, when our enemy is the most vulnerable. Now the men behind me kept urging me to kill Saul. They were saying stuff like, the Lord said as much when he said, I will give your enemies into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. Honestly, I don't know what they were quoting, but right then, it really sounded good. These guys were really making sense. So what do? I take my sword. I quietly sneak up behind him. Did I mention I'm one of the first ninjas of the world? Anyway, I sneak up behind him. I raise my sword, and I cut off a piece of Saul's robe. I quietly sneak back to my men, and almost immediately, I'm feeling guilty for what I've done. Here is a man anointed by God. What right do I have to raise a hand against him? And here's the thing you have to understand. Me touching Saul's robes is tantamount to me touching Saul's person himself. It was an expression of the utmost disdain and disrespect that I could have shown Saul. And I felt so guilty that I went and called out to Saul. Saul, I don't understand why you have this beef with me. I don't understand why you're trying to hurt me. I've never done anything to hurt you. Look at this. You were peeing in my cave and I could have killed you, but no, I just took a piece of your robe. See, look at this. Now check your robe. There's a bit cut off. Yeah, I'll pay for it later. Don't worry about it. And Saul is overcome after he hears this, and he realizes what he has been doing to me. He apologizes, and after he apologizes, of all the things to say, he asks for a favor. He says, please don't kill my family when you come into your kingship. Because back in my day, when one person succeeded a king, they would kill off the family so that there was no inner struggles. Now I didn't trust him yet, and he went his own way and I went my own way. A while later, I had another opportunity to kill Saul. He's coming at me again with 3,000 men. What's with him and 3,000 men? I'm actually able to sneak into his camp while he's sleeping, though. Go up to his bed, and I grab the spear and the jug of water that he keeps near his head. And then I go off to a distance and call out to his army again. And Saul realizes what I could have done, and yet didn't do. He calls me his son and asks me to come back to him. And so I go and I return the spear. I return the water jug. And I say to him, the Lord rewards every man for his righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord delivered you into my hands today, but I would not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. As surely as I have valued your life today, so may the Lord value my life and deliver me from all trouble. And here's the key to it all. I trusted the Lord. And so this is how the story ends. This was the last time I had this kind of an encounter with King Saul. Today we witnessed two perfect opportunities. Two perfect, absolutely perfect opportunities for me to take revenge on Saul for all the things he put me through. I was living in a cave and he comes and pees in my cave, seriously? But both times I didn't. Why? Because he was an anointed one of God. Up in heaven through the grapevine, I hear one of my descendants will one day go on to say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. An apostle of that same descendant says in Romans 12, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Do not take revenge, but leave room for God's wrath. This is where I'm going to leave the David persona behind and continue as me. I know, kind of a downgrade from being one of the best known kings in Israel to being an Asian guy who owns a sushi and teriyaki restaurant in Bellevue called Sushi Up, right across the street from City Hall. Here are some things we need to keep in mind, though. As Christians, not just as Christians, but as people, we have to be ready. We have to be expecting to be mistreated. We can't go around with this notion of expecting to be treated right. There are going to be those people who are actually going to go out of their way just to give you a hard time. And tragically, many people are going to let us down. Some of them are going to inflict great pain upon us. So we shouldn't be surprised. To some degree, we have to expect it. Knowing this, I suggest that we anticipate feelings of revenge. If we're hurt badly, our natural inclination will be towards getting revenge. But it is a temptation we must overcome. In the first series of the Spider-Man franchise, Peter Parker is going up to the guy and realizes this is the same guy that he let go, and he's the one who killed his uncle. And the guy freaks out, he backs up, and he falls through the window, he dies. Peter feels guilty about it. In this second franchise, The Amazing Spider-Man, he's going after all these guys who are blonde, and he's trying to find the right guy. And he ends up getting in trouble with the police because he messes around with one guy he goes too far. And he's obsessed with his revenge. As I've said before, revenge isn't the answer. It's going to be hard to let some of the things go, and really hard to let other things go. But that's just the way it is. Lastly, I would suggest we leave it all in the hands of God. Someone once said that revenge gets you even with your enemy, but forgiveness puts you above him. Can you trust God to be the judge? Can you trust God to judge your enemies, to judge those who have wronged you? Can you trust that God will work things out in the end? Rather than taking revenge, Jesus himself gave us a challenge. He told us to love our enemies and treat them in a loving, kind, compassionate, righteous way. By doing so, we overcome evil with good. By doing so, we get something better than revenge. We get the peace of God. And by the end of it, of course, we'll know that we are right with God and that he will bless us. Amen? Let us pray real quick. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this place, this time, and this opportunity you've given us to come together in fellowship, to come together in your name. I just pray, Lord, that you would just bless us at this time and that you would just give us peace in our hearts. Have us let go of our grudges. Have us let go of those we have something against. I just pray, Lord, that revenge wouldn't be on our minds and that rather we would be fully and wholly devoted to you and to your will. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.